Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. Well, my plan was to finish up part one and then go right into part two painting that day, but you know, life gets into the way. So it's actually been 2 days, and I wanted to share with you before I started the video, I wanted to share with you how I save my palette, because I do this all the time. Now, so this is just, you remember the old cafeteria trays that we used to get as kids, you know, in school, and so this is one of them. It cost me about, I think it was like $6 or whatever. And what I do with it is I just mist the whole top of it with water like this, and then I invert it over my palette, and that keeps the colors nice. So my palette here this was 2 days. It's been 2 days since I filmed part one. Now the only thing is, when you're using a multimedia palette like this, you'll get some wrinkles in the palette because of the water moisture, but the paints here are all amazing, great, stay with this. And what it is what you have to think of is when the paint is out into a tube, see, you don't need anything. Why? Because it creates a humid environment inside the tube, that moisture. And so the air can't get to it dry. What I do when I mist the top of the lid like this, and then I just invert it down over onto my palette, is I create a very humid environment for that paint, and the paint stays very nice. So that's how I like to do it. I don't like to use stay wet palettes or any of that kind of stuff, because they introduce a lot of water into the paint, and water will make make these paints dry faster. Okay, because they're glycol-based paints, so they're different from a lot of other acrylics. So that's one reason why I do it. Now, to stop some of the wrinkles, all I usually do is I just tear across like this, right across my palette, and I take the wrinkles off, and now I'm back to a clean, particularly clean palette again. And you can save this for some of your color matching and stuff like that if you want to, but I'm down to a nice clean area. And then some of the colors that I'm going to want to use today a little bit more, I'll go ahead and put some of these out. And I'm almost out of my white here, so we'll get the last little bits here out of this tube. And then sometimes you can get so you can get the paints here in tubes. You can also get them in containers like this, and when I use them into the containers, I just use these. These are all tongue depressors. You can get thousands of them on for just a couple bucks, and so I just use a tongue depressor with each color. This is my burnt sienna color, and I'll put some of that out here like that. So colors that I use a lot of and stuff, I will use them in the containers. I will get them at these this size of container, because it's more economical. But that's how I do it. And so you can see the palette is all done, the palette is all saved. It's been 2 days, and we're ready to rock and roll. But so coming back onto our painting here, we got to paint the brass today, and I do want to, and this is looking pretty good, the flowers and stuff, but I do want to show you one thing that I do before I start, is that I will put some extender on. Mostly to what it does, and you'll see the difference here hopefully, is I take my brush and I start to put up some extender. You can see right here, see the difference between here and here, see? And so if I put that over there, you'll see that difference. See the difference between here and here. And so what this does, the extender, is this wakes up the colors. Takes them to the wet look, so that your eye can get back just like into the same level that it was when we were painting this a couple days ago. It can put I can visualize it, what the colors look like. Now, I don't like to have a tremendous amount on the surface, so I put some on here like this, wake up the colors. I should just go ahead, and so you can really see the difference, like right over here. See the difference between it and not. So you can see a cloudy color to a clear color. It's right over there. And that is very important, that you kind of wake things up. And I do this a lot. I do this sometimes when, I'll put a painting away. Not always, but I'll put a painting away for a few days, and then come back and evaluate it and see, do I need to do anything more on that painting? And a good way to evaluate it is put a little bit of extender on. And that extender will make the surface here look exactly like the painting's going to be when you varnish it. You ever notice when you varnish something, it wakes up the colors? And that's because it is taking away the matte look of the colors and giving it back that luminosity and stuff that it originally has when it's wet. So, and that varnish will do the same thing. So anyway, that wakes it up. So this is going to allow us to come in and work. I'm going to go grab my same brush here that has lots of buildup of paint on it here, and we'll go right into working on some of our container here. I want to add some more looks to it. So I want to, here's a little bit of see, that's just a real pretty color. See, you move that in there. That's just a real pretty color that goes right into some of this. And we'll take a little bit of darker, cooler color. We're going to work our tones again, and I'm probably going to do this one more time as well, or two more times. I'll take some of these violets that I have right in here and add a mark or two in of those colors in there. Some of the greens that I have, and I'll touch right into some of that green right into this area right here and add a mark or two of that, and move back and forth between some of these colors here and add some of these marks. And see, I want to use smaller marks here as I'm building this so that I get that hammered look that we have up there, that real hammered kind of look. And now that I have my roses done, I can adjust the look of my container here to where I want to see my roses, but I want this container to have quite a bit of interest. So up here in the front, I might go to a burnt sienna, a yellow oxide and a little bit of Diarylide Yellow right around in a few of these areas right up in here to bring some of that, that glow, that interest in there. And that's going to be up to you. You're going to determine just how much that you want to add. But adding small marks and working colors like this. See, I'm a tone painter, so I don't worry about having to blend any of this. I'm painting in marks and tones of color and moving that color across what I need. Let's put a little red into that. Burnt sienna and a little bit of yellow and make that mark right down through there. See, and this is like those of you that want to paint, and I told you about some of the grand manner style and stuff. This is what you do, is you work in these marks and these tones, put it in here. You don't really necessarily, not very often, do you blend two tones together to create a third tone. You can, but you're a tone painter more than anything else. You're looking at what that tone needs, and you're applying that tone. So as we come down here, I'll put some of this hammered color in, and I can see over there that my tone is close, but it needs to go just a touch greener. So I'll touch just a little bit of green. And that's part of your process of learning, is that you have to learn to see what it is in the tone that you're going to see. So, and that comes, when you first start out, you go, wow, that's really hard to see, but it will come. It will get easier, and it will come here. This actual vase comes out like this a bit and then back down. So we should correct that just a bit, even though I'm going to put most of this in shadow and do this, blur those edges out just a bit. So that's what I want to do. And we'll put a little bit of this other tone, the reddish kind of tone in there. But I want to expand some of this yellow-green and burnt sienna here. And so see, I'm watching my tones here as I'm going across. I want this kind of greenish tone here. And the burnt sienna takes away that color, that greenish tone. So I want some of that. Now see, as I just lightly, that's why I like the fusion brush, I just lightly step way back on your handle here, and you're not blending here, you're just taking a mark. And you don't want, if I keep stroking that, that's going to become one color. So you want to, it's really hard. You don't want, you got to stop painting. That's the best way to put it. You got to put on these marks here, and then you can't keep touching it. Keep touching it, it's going to go to one color. So rather than, going to one color, you want to move that mark, or you want to change the tone and go to something else. I'm going to carry some of that green right down here like this. There's a mark. Let's put a little bit more right down in through here. And see, I touched into just a touch more burnt sienna, and see how the tone subtly changed. Now, the question is, do you leave that little mark right there? Yes, I do. And I might even put, because I see up some of that shiny yellow and stuff right up there, I might just hit a mark right there, maybe slightly different angle so that it looks a little different. I'll hit that mark right there. And then let's go back up to our burnt sienna, maybe a burnt sienna, a little bit of red, and a little bit of the Diarylide Yellow. Here, let's go a little bit more to this kind of glowy orange color. Let's put some of that mark down here, see? And I wiped my brush, so I have just a little bit of the paint in the brush now. So I just do it there. So sometimes when I'm going to take a second mark, I don't use that same load of the brush, because that'll put too much on and make something that's too much the same. Does that make sense? So I do this, and so you saw me do this. I just take my brush, I take off some of it. Now I have just a little that I can make a smaller mark that will look a little bit different. So now you can see coming across through here some of the pretty color that we can develop here, and add a little bit of the open medium here. If you want some of this to stay wet, this will stay wet for hours if I do this. And this will allow me to develop some more colors, through the painting here. I've got that brighter, almost orange color that's part of the reflection here. Probably not that bright, that I do want to impart right in through there before I go over to some of this cooler color here. And some of it, I'll push in this way. A little bit of light here. Now, some alla prima painters, some of this when you do the Grand Manner will allow this. I allow this. I allow the modeling. I like the modeling brush. Some will mix up until they don't have that model and put that mark on. So their color is more specific. And, which one is correct? They're both correct. They're all giving a different look. That's too light for there. So I'll tone that back down. See, I just paint right through that with a slightly different tone, taking it back down to where it needs to be. And I'll leave all those little marks. I'll leave all of that little mark, because that is what's giving the interest here to the painting. So we'll take this, we'll tone this down a little bit here. We'll push in some of this nice dark, and sometimes I'll just model the brush, a little green, a little burnt sienna here, not too much paint in my brush, and I'm just going to come across here like this and put in that band of shadow, what we call form shadow of the container. So light's hitting up here, the roundest part of the container is right down here, so below that you get what we call the form shadow. And I'll put some of that on and soften some of the marks. So all I do is I slide right over to the yellows that yellow greens that I was using, and just slide right along it there, and I put that other mark in. Then we'll go back up here to some yellow, some light, maybe a bit brighter here, and we'll just soften the edge of those marks there. And so if I go too light or whatever it is, I'll come back over here, touch a little bit of yellow in this color, and soften that mark right there, see? So you can see on the container there, though, there's some pretty distinct lights that are right in there that I might just leave. It all depends on what? It all depends on my roses, how much I'm going to leave showing on my roses. So I got some of that. I want to have a bit of green. So what happens is, as your eye keeps looking, your eye starts picking out more colors, more marks here, more colors it could use in here. And it gets closer and closer to what you might want to do into the painting. So I can take a couple marks there. Let's soften this more of a yellow right in here. There, okay. And then we'll pick up more of the highlight here, maybe even a little bit of Hansa into that. We'll pick up that lighter highlight that we want. Now we're moving the highlight over, right? We've moved that over more in line to, this is the center, so hitting more to this side. Let's go a little yellow oxide, little Diarylide Yellow. Put that mark in just to soften. See, it's a smaller softening that highlight. Let's go just touch darker, maybe even a little bit of green right along that bottom mark there. Okay, so you can see those marks are going to give this hammered look to it. See, and that's what I'm looking for here. Some of this smaller mark right back here again, and wipe your brush. You can just wipe your brush and just take a very light, this is barely touching the surface, to soften that mark that way too. But don't do it multiple times. There's a tendency you want to touch it, and if you keep touching it, you'll make that beautiful variation disappear, and we don't want to do that, right? And we don't want to do that. So I'm going to paint that in there like that, and I'm going to go across here, all the way across here, over here, and we'll work some of this color back in over here, some of the green with it that I see, because it's going to pick up some of the reflections of the other, the other tones around. So we'll tone down our yellow here and make a tone that is going to slowly come across our vase here, our brass, hammered brass vase here. There we go. And just put in some of these different things. And if you notice, I'm starting to speed up. That's when I really like to paint it, is when I speed up, because I feel I get a better look when I paint fast. Otherwise, I start to, and see, there's other people that'll disagree with me and stuff, and that's fine. And some of you will disagree with me and everything, and that's fine. Some of you will want to slow down, maybe have a cup of coffee between every mark, and that's okay. What we do is we put out like I say, the possibilities of it, and then, we all are going to paint it a little different. And you find what works for you. So I'm just going to straighten out some of the architecture here of that vase now as I do this. And I like that kind of greenish shadowy tone that we put here. So, and again, I'll take it a few different ways. I'll add some of that open medium here because I like how it feels in the brush. It slides the color. Sometimes I use extender, sometimes I use open medium, and mostly that's to help the color slide across the surface here. And so I don't want to take too long with one particular tone. So I'll move it into a couple of different marks here. And we'll hit the light that's coming on it. And I don't worry about hitting it perfect. I'm not going to spend all that time trying to hit it perfect. I'm just going to deposit it there and, put some of these marks on. Maybe hit a couple of verticals there. Let's get a brighter yellow, slightly darker, brighter yellow right up in here, which works up towards that top rim of that. Now, see, it has the painting that we're emulating has a bunch of scrolls and stuff on it. Now, you can add those just by add light and shadow if you want. I'm not going to. I'm going to just paint it this way, I think. And then I'll soften that edge and soften those marks just a bit. So I'm going to concentrate on just the colors more than anything else. So we'll build this nice little light that's nice area. I call that the foundation for the highlight, and then the highlight into that area. And that highlight can go a little bit more. And then as you move away from that original highlight, that shine, just drop the value down a bit and hit a few more little ones, little marks here across. And so I'm using just real light pressure on the brush here. There we go. And I want some of that dark to creep up in there to give it that hammered look. And then I'm going to just let some of this all soften out. There'll be some, let's get some heavier, darker here, right up in here. That just gives you a really good feeling of light and shadow on it. As we head over here, maybe a little bit more burnt sienna in some of this. At that open medium here, heavier shadow area here. And right up in, you know, and I put that real light little blue in there, which is not in the original. It's not in our reference, but a little bit of that blue, tone it down, does look quite nice into the painting over here. So I feel it does. If you don't like it, don't edit. Here we go. And soften that out a bit. Let's go to a little bit of green, maybe a little bit of violet and green, which is your real dark color. Add some of that in on that. See, and I'll leave that kind of hammered look there on this container. I'll leave some of that. And that to me is, you know, what I like. I mean, I like this little hammered look of all these colors and tones. Don't touch it too much, Dave. Started becoming one color, and I don't like that. That's a habit. Even I have that habit. We all have that habit. Let's take a little bit of that orange. Just as a bit of that right in there. See, just a touch of that. And this is kind of a harsh line there, so let's take some of it out. There. Take it down that side. Yeah, I like that. And see, so instead of blending, this is what you do, guys. Instead of blending an area here together, I have a light dark. If you bother by an area there or something, you want to do something more, I have a light dark there. Take like a little yellow oxide, a little medium value, and hit through that area. And just tap it through that area. You'll preserve the hammered look here, but you're softening out some of that exchange of the light dark, see? So rather than blend, I'm taking a value or a color that's in between the light and the dark and moving it through that way. Let's lighten that just a bit. So I will probably so that, you know, that starts to look pretty good to what I want with my light source and stuff. And of course, I'll fix that up even more as we go further into the painting here. Let me, so that's going to be, I'm going to leave this little bit of blue, maybe a touch more blue right in here, because I do like that coolness right in here on this side, and let some of this travel up like it's the hammered side of it there, like that. And let's get that burnt sienna green, which I'm using as a really nice shadowy tone here. You could have a little blue in that, which will darken that down even more. Let's put some of that down here by the lower part of the foot here, a little pedestal foot on it. Maybe a bit of yellow to soften some of that here. Leave some of that hammering look in there. Now on the actual foot in there, there's very little light, so I should take some of that back. Let's take a little bit of red and yellow and burnt sienna, and we'll take some of this back here. Some of that light away from there. Maybe a bit more shadow right in there. We're just right over that foot. And leave a little bit of it showing. We'll leave a little bit of the light there. Okay. And some of this real casual. This is what I like about this style of painting, is that I can leave it casual. So we'll hit a little bit of light, and notice I'll change the position of my brush, tap it through some of that, and leave that little bit of light right there. Maybe a bit more shadow right here to help round and push that foot, that pedestal foot down there. And there's a bit of the contact shadow climbed up a bit much, so I'll just take care of that right there. And let's reinforce the contact shadow, which is going to be the contact shadow really in the painting is one of the darkest shadows within the painting. Not a lot of people know that. You know, so all the years that I taught color theory and stuff, when I started teaching color theory back in 1983, a few years ago, and in studying shadows and everything, and you know, finally it hit me. What is it that creates the shadow? The light. So when shadows go further back, they don't get darker than the shadows that are up in the front. The darkest shadows, do setups and stuff, and you'll always see the darkest shadow is the furthest forward in the painting. It's closest to the light source, because the extreme light creates the extreme dark. And then shadows and form shadows and cast shadows come together in value as they go further back. That's all good color theory. So let's clean up a little bit of our contact shadow line. That's going to be right there. That's going to set this container onto the ground here. And we'll just let some of these, and this is, in the grand manner, you would blur some of those edges there so that they are, so that you don't see, we want to see the edges through here. We want this to all be softer out through here. So that's what you do, is you start blurring some of that out. Let's take some open medium, and I like open medium in my bigger brush. I like open medium and little extender and stuff together. Let's take some yellow and maybe a bit of these colors in here, and let's come right back up in here into the front for a second with some of these colors. We'll just pull down, and what I'm doing is just softening, breaking the edge of that contact shadow that I just put on. And so I don't have a harsh edge there. And we'll take some of this light, let's put it all back up and through here, this nice bright yellow. Let's add a bit of light to that, a bit more. Right where remember we said we were going to do this a few times right up in here. And I want to leave some of this light right up here. You don't have to have it quite that white if you don't want. Just stroke back through with another yellow. As we go back, maybe some green and some burnt sienna, some of the other colors that we're using, maybe a touch of red. I mean, some of the other great, 19th century painters would just dive right in there with color and put those colors in, just grab some of that. And so one thing that I like about the open medium, I feel like I'm painting with paint. But the other thing is that it is a little bit transparent because it's adding just a touch of transparency to the paint. So I'm not painting with like super opaque color, which normally happens anytime you start adding all of these whites. You start getting more opaque colors and stuff in there as well. So here I get this. And this will allow me to develop that light right up through here a bit more. That path of light that's going to go that I want to go through my painting there, right up through like that here. And I kind of like some of that. That part right there. I want to increase this light just a bit more right in here. So I don't know if you can hear my dogs are barking in their sleep there. Pull down just a bit, good strong verticals and horizontals in there as you start to develop some of this. All of us are going to have a little bit different brush calligraphy, the movement of our brush, so that is what makes it fun too. So here you see I got this movement and stuff coming through. We can have a bit of a nice contact shadow here with this. Let's go back to our smaller brush. Contact and a little bit of the cast shadow right here from this rose, which would cast that same And maybe that shadow goes into that edge of the rose just a bit here. And when you're painting like anything like the Grand Manner style that he had, edges are so important. Everything is about edges. And, you know, in most of the fine art and the beautiful styles, the beautiful painters, you know, whether you're painting a portrait with John Howard Sandham or you're painting, you know, the beautiful still lifes and floral still lifes and stuff like that of Richard Smith and stuff that created the Grand Manner, you are concentrating on your edges. So right through here is I want to have some of this, but I'm going to be softening the edges out just a bit, not completely, you know, not so that they don't compete with some of the stuff that I want to do out here in some of this other area. And watching your values, here I could have a bit more of a cast, some of that shadow, maybe take some of that right up over this edge of the rose, right there, like that. So it pushes that edge of the rose back. And, you know, and it's easy to do that with a little bit of open medium. Sometimes if it's a little sticky, just add some extender to it, and I get this really nice, almost glazing type color that I can come through and just push back some edges, soften some edges, push some edges back, and maybe approach it with a little softer color in there and push those together so I get a bit more translucency and or the feeling of transparency in that edge of the rose. And so you can see it's just a lovely way to develop that. I'm going to build up this light just a bit more, right where I want to have that. Now that's too light, but you know me, I like to put on too much, and then I'll just work my brush through it here to take some of it off, take some of the edges of the light, lifting some of that off, leaving that hammered look there. So yeah, that, but I do want it over a little larger area here. So let's expand it across a bit here. There, like that. There we go. Just let some of that shimmer down through here. In a few areas, I like that little bit of shimmering that happens. And let's build in line with that a little bit of light there. And that's going to be in line with that. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We might extend this out just a bit of a line that helps us with the architecture of it. So, you know, sometimes extending that highlight line out a little bit to the roundness or the ellipse of the container will help you with your architecture, the feeling of your architecture. Maybe a bit of yellow here onto the edges there of that. Just a nice little yellow touch. And then don't forget, you will have a cast shadow of that little rose right there. You know, or a contact shadow, if you want to really call it that. Right there where it's touching that part of the container. Okay, so, and you'll have that right over here onto the back side of this rose here. Little bit of a contact. If you want to be, you know, not all, and that's the thing, not all, you know, real fast autoprima painters will capture all those shadows. I know from all my years of studying realism, I capture those shadows, but I can do any variety of it. Here, I'm just going to take some of that right out, right into that, and let some of this whole area right back here start to become right into shadow. I like that. Let's go a little violet and some of these tone violets right back here, and let some of that come in right in there, deeper color. See what we like about that. That might work. It's a little, it feels a little cloudy right in here. You know, I might take some of that violet and just whisper over some of this back edge of the container and bring those edges. There's nothing wrong with that. Bring those edges to where you can, you're almost losing them. I can bring it back with my finger just a bit, see? So I can just, but almost where you're losing it. And That is very much a Dutch thing to do. So my painting is a combination of everything, you know. That becomes your style, your technique of what you want to do, you know. So anyway, so we have that in there. I like that. I might want to, and see what, towards the end, what I'll do is I'll come back in and say, ooh, that looks a little bit too much the same. So I'll hit it with a few other little marks of color, see? Just little marks of color. This is that brighter orange that I like to have. So maybe a bit of that right down in there again. Hit that, and it just, boom, this makes that come forward. Maybe a bit of my burnt sienna and stuff right in there. So smaller little marks, see, and that just adds so much to the painting. Okay, now let's get some other elements within the painting so that we can work on that. So we'll have some leaves and stuff coming down. Some greens, and I want to do the warmer greens here. Start first with the warmer greens. Here, pine green, burnt sienna, and then we'll transition over to some of our other greens and stuff as well. What I want to do is bring down maybe a little vine right here, right up by this this light, but I don't want to cover up too much of that light, and I want to put in a leaf maybe right here. So what this does is it points the painting down just a bit right there, right by our center of interest there. Okay, maybe take one that's going to go this way up underneath this one, up underneath that rose, and maybe paint one coming down right here over the rose, right here, that back edge of that rose right there. And it's going to fill that area. Now, what I'll do is I want to go more of a blue-green, a cooler blue-green to give some of that in, some of this color in as well. So now I'll go to a cooler, lighter blue-green. And sometimes when I paint the leaves, and I like to do this, I'm going to switch to a smaller. This is a number, what is this one? This is an 8 Fusion Flat. And I'll go to a flat to give me a little bit different brush calligraphy onto it. And so we'll paint some of this there, like that. And let's take a kind of a combination there. Little bit darker shadow, bit of it. Pull, and I'll leave that little vein line. Now I don't want to, leave a rigid vein line. I want to work this a couple times. Even add a little yellow to that. Here I want to work a couple of strokes wise. Here, a couple marks. Here, so that as I paint that leaf in there, see. Let's again. Let's go green, blue. A little bit of burnt sienna. Let's add a little bit of light to that. Let's get a little more green and blue. I want a real toned grade blue-green because I think that it's a cooler looking color into the painting, and I think it will add a lot more interest to the painting if I add some of the blue-greens in. So that's one reason why I'm doing it. Not anything other than artistic choice here. So I want those cooler colors. I don't want the painting, to feel like super warm. So I want some of these cooler greens and stuff in here as well. Darker little colors here happening on this shadow side. As it comes up right where that light is, let's get some more of that back into the light. A lighter blue-green right up here. Pull that in towards that vein line. Maybe just a whisper of that color coming through this leaf. There, use your brush in all kinds of ways to get that calligraphy in there. Let's put a touch of this. Change it up a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit more green. So add some more green right over here. So this leaf is not exactly the same as those others there. Let's add a little touch of some of that vein in there. Some other colors pulling through there. Just get those colors, get the colors moving. Various colors. cool colors of your leaves. Not all the leaves, so you can take some of this warm and just hit some of the warmth into that leaf too, and it'll help that leaf settle into the painting. Because there's a lot of warmth into this painting, but I do want some of that cooler gray, that cooler, lighter gray to hit some of this painting as well, right in here. So I'm really kind of getting specific with this leaf here, right there, but that's kind of an important leaf right there. Kind of an important leaf right in there. There we go. Leave a few streaks for some vein lines here. There. So that works kind of well right in there. Let's add some more, okay? And we're going to vary the tones now. So let's go with a little green and a little yellow and stuff like that. And you know, we want to work those again right up in there as well. We want maybe another rose back there, but let's work some of the greens. And I'm not going to be absolutely specific with anything perfect in there. I'll just work some of the greens, some blues, some burnt siennas. You know, there's a lot going on in there, right? And so I'll push some of that color through. Then let's take some of our blue-green here and maybe bring out more of a leaf, you know, more of a pure leaf shape in there. So it's coming forward, maybe a bit more light on it here, right here, right in, right there like that, there. Maybe a touch of the warmth in there on the back side so you can see some other things. Maybe a little bit of light right onto a chisel here for a idea of a vein line and running right through it there. Okay, and maybe a bit of an edge, like this is one that's going to go right underneath that one right there. And we'll just let that edge soften out. But so you see, I'm just building this. What I do when I do this is I'm just kind of, let's get a little more blue into that. Burnt sienna, blue, green, that kind of stuff going through here. Maybe a bit more greens right down in here. Let's get a bit more of a green right in there. Vary the colors of your leaves because nature does too here as you start to fill up some of this composition. Let's put in some of that green right up towards that edge, and we can just model some of that around like that. I like to do this. Sometimes when I feel the edge is just too perfect, I just model and blur some color right there over and into it, and maybe even a little light blue touch right there to say something as well right there, you know. So yeah, now, so I like all that. Now I want to do some more as I move out. First, let me put in a nice lighter yellow, and let's see, let's go, if it's coming this way, so boom, this is touching their, you know, stems and stuff, you know, you move the ideas of stems and stuff through the painting. Let's take a lighter bit of yellow here, maybe bend this stem coming back down from underneath there. That's the stem of that particular rose there. Maybe hit a touch of light onto it. Just a touch there. Okay, and maybe some green. This is what I like to do. Let's bring out some green leaves and stuff. Just coming down here, blur them out a bit. And maybe a little blue-green into that. And see, a lot of times when I come out and I've made some perfect leaves, and then all I start to look for anything now is color, because your eye will see the color. Let's put a little bit of burnt sienna in that. Okay, so your eye will start to just follow the color, and where it, you know, it sees these greens, it's going to see them as leaves and stuff. And I don't have to I don't have to paint perfect leaves or anything. I just have to put some color out there and your eye will start to see leaves. And that's one of the things that, that came to me so much later in my painting was you don't have to paint it perfect. Everything's so perfect. You just have to push that color out there and the viewer will see that color as, as a leaf or as an element or something like that. Okay, so anyway, let's keep going. I wanted to, but I wanted to do this I wanted to push back. So let's take some of our extender, some other color, some light color, some yellow, some burnt sienna, and some green. Here, more burnt sienna. Here, some extender into it, so it's not really, really opaque here. Okay, and I wanted to push back some of this light, so it's not quite so light. And I'll just go right over my leaves here that I wanted them to come back a bit anyway. You can bring them back slowly just by this, just by touching through. And remember, I showed you in the first video, cut it with water and you'll go even further. You'll take it all the way back. But I want that to disappear back up there a bit. And put a little burnt sienna back in there, let that come down through there. So the through light does not need to be all that light. I could light it up a little bit more right back up there. And again, I just go right over the leaves because it pushes them back into the painting as well, which is what I want. So, and let's go a little more burnt sienna and green here. Maybe a little bit of open medium. That I like the feel of the open medium as paint, so I get a more powerful mark, but I don't. It slows it down a lot, and so I don't want to use a tremendous amount. And we can blur and move the more you move your towel around, the more you blur it off, soften it out. We can make sure that you don't get a harsh line right there. So walk your shadow one way, walk your light the other way, back and forth into each other so you get a smooth transition and you don't get a harsh line. You don't want a harsh line there, okay? And that is kind of dried over here a little bit. Well, yeah, we put it on 47 minutes ago, so it's dried a little bit here. So let's look at that. That's got to be a little deep. I want a deeper color over there. Some burnt sienna and some blue. I want some of that burnt sienna, though, to come out because I think that would be pretty into the composition, isn't it? Some burnt sienna to come out into the painting. Burnt sienna works with this container so well that to have some of that come out into the painting is quite nice. Maybe not that much, but some of it to come out into the painting is quite nice here. So we'll work. So with the through light, the light comes in through here, it's going through here. So your darkest part of your painting is over here. And so I want to work that again. And I want some of these nice, deep, rich colors back here. Burnt sienna and blue. You can have a little green. Let some of those richness and sometimes I'll take my bigger brush here and I'll just lightly go through softening it down here. Just a bit. And what I call is, a lot of people call this blending. I call it blurring. Blending to me has always been taking two colors and working them together till you get another color. And so what I'm not really blending because I don't have that much color on there. I always like to call it blurring. And there's some that will disagree with me, and that's okay. But I like the variation. Ooh, I like that bit of blue that just came out into that. That just looks really neat and really pops that forward here. So, little left-hand painting today. Just because it's different, blur that out a bit. There, that's kind of nice. And look at how it just advances those roses. Just really nice. Let's take a little yellow in with some of that burnt sienna green. Let's try something right in here. And may or may not work. I'm going to wipe some of that extra color out of my brush and just push in another bit of color. Some of these greens and stuff in there that will push that color back up that way. And I think that works. A bit more, put a bit of extender into this. A bit more of this color, shadow color coming forward. Wipe it with the paper towel, softens it out a bit, or you can use the big brush, blurring it. When you're, one of the things, like if you watch Richard Smith's Grand Manner, he uses a lot of his knife to do a lot of stuff, and some various brushes and stuff. And I tend to paint a lot. I tend to try to capture some of the look, but I tend to use, more of a singular brush, and and I'll use my knife. Like I may come back, I've got a really good look right here, so I don't think I will. But a lot of times you'll see me use the knife like up into the center part of an area or something like that. So I'll run my painting knife, back up there. But I don't think I'll do that today. We'll do that in some other lessons, though, because I'll show you guys that. But and then you take all this. You don't have to do it all. You can emulate it any way you want. That's yours. Let's take some of the yellow and let's just move some of that through here and create some of that light dark illusion there. Some of that yellow coming through. Some of that yellow right out through here, and see it's just really a nice, taking some of that container across. Now this stops a little quick. You see how it's smooth right out over here, and it stops light dark a little quick, which means I need to take a little yellow, a little light, some of my container colors here, and we need to have a little bit different light coming. Needs to come a little further across here. So let's just add some of that. Let's go a little lighter, a little yellow, a little light here. And let's pull this across this way. Just let it diminish down here. Wipe some of that so it's not quite so heavy in your brush. Maybe pull down a bit. Here, get a different look to it. Now that light's moving across, but it's kind of a yellow-green. It's a little different here. And then I'll finally come back up to some of that light and some of that yellow here, and let's just push some of that yellow and that light so it softens out coming here. So in other words, what I really want to do is keep that that yellow and stuff. I want a smoother transition of light moving through my painting in both directions there. All right, so see that's kind of nice. That sets up. We've got it lighter here, a little bit darker there, fading off through there. And so that kind of works. Now, I like how that works. So let's come back in and we'll paint some real quick roses. Some of our reds and stuff through here. We could actually hit some of these back edges a little bit more red because we wanted some of these to be more red right back up there. And we can carry some of that. We were going to push maybe a reddish one right back up over here. Just the idea of it. Let's go a little bit of red, violet, and blue. And again, you'll notice I start working faster when I'm out of my center of interest now. I'll start working faster so that I don't play around with it, because you want these areas. Here's some of my reds. You want these areas to just be casual impressions of it. They don't need to be perfect roses or anything like that. They're the colors. I always say this is basically what you're doing is you're just moving color back here more than anything else. You're just moving color. So let's move a softer white, grayed white, a little bit of blue into that. Because we put that blue into some of the others. Let's move a little bit of a softer light Maybe that's a rose coming back up over here. You know, we might have one a little bit further back, right back here, that is breaking that hard line here. Just breaking that line. And you just give impressions. Maybe this one's turning down or so here. So it doesn't need to have that much. Maybe put a bit of the pink onto it as well. You know, it's an impression. And what is it that makes them more than anything else is that center. So you put that center, make sure you toss a little bit of it onto the lower side there. And some people always write to me, they say they like my ghost roses best of all of anything else. And I was like, you know, wow, I put a lot of interest into some of the others and you like these little ghost ones more than anything. Yeah. But, yeah, it's because they like the simplicity of it, you know, and that's true. We all tend to overpaint so many times, you know, so yeah, let's get some of this out. Let's get some of that. There's beautiful, you know, one of the things that, you know, good rose composition and stuff should have is some of those darker red kind of leaves as well. The younger rose leaves. So when you're going to go to the real small ones, you can use the younger rose leaf shapes, which is more of the orange. You know, burnt siennas and the reds here. Sometimes a little bit of red green and stuff. So you can push some of those out into the outer edges of your composition and stuff out here. Like maybe a smaller little leaf shape here. A few of them coming out. You know, just adds, and maybe don't make those edges perfect. Just blur those colors back through there, you know, and just to push that color in there. Let's get some cooler greens. Work those back through here. Some of those shapes there. And quick. Maybe a bit more green into some of that. You know, you can paint layers of leaves. When I first started, I would, you know, paint independent leaves. One color leaf, another color leaf. And then as I learned more, I started painting more layers. In other words, one leaf sitting on top of another, because that's the way it is. And so got to lean in a little bit here, guys. I've got a glare. Sorry about my head here. That's the problem. Sometimes you use that extender and you get that wet, you'll get a glare, and you have to be able to look past that sometimes. There we go. Push some of that back through here. And if it's too much or so, just blur it off. Let the colors come together back there and just blur it off. And see, as I blur this off, this white rose comes further forward. Do you see that? Okay. So I could have a nice warmer yellow green, a little touch of that right up in here. That would be a good place for it because there's a lot of cool right back there. So toss in a bit of a warmer yellow green right back there as well, right in there in a couple of areas. Yeah, just a mark or two of that, and some of that right out here, you know, just marks of those, and then some blue-green ones coming out. There we go. Blur. I like the blur edges of the whole thing, letting some of those colors just, you know, just blur away, disappear. But if you find it, it's hard for me to paint those very specific angular leaves. It's a little harder with the filbert, but you can do it. I'm doing it with the filbert right now, but it's a little easier with a flat. You can get that sharp edge or angle of it and stuff with the flat. So your choice. There, we'll just push those in like that. Let's push a bit more right in here. What is that? It's a back leaf. And I just need the color, right? We know we just need the color. And yeah, just prettiness through here, these colors through there. That's pretty nice. That works pretty good. I'm going to put a little bit of extender right in here where this is dry here. And I'm going to clean that green out because I'm going to go to this red, and I'm going to build this red up just a bit right here. Right in here. Take a look at that and see if that's really touch that red through there. That's kind of nice. Sometimes you can take that little mark and like into a smaller area, like right back here, push that in there like there's another red back behind there, see? And that really does work. Works nice. And and then let's get some of that red up here a bit more. Nicer pink, not completely pink. A little, so, and if you want to keep it from going too pink, head towards the orange a bit to a little bit of yellow there. So, but I want to make a few marks of this light right in here. It just brings some more interest to that rose without it going too much now. So, and simple marks of light, of tone, change the tone slightly, simple marks, and we'll keep this rose very simple here. Light, dark, and around there like that. And maybe a bit darker right into the center of it here. Some of that dark to the low side there. And let's start just a bit of that right here onto this turned one we started. And I lost the calyx there over the painting here, so I might come back and redefine a little bit of green. Leave that kind of soft though. Kind of soft. Let's bring some of this red, pink, a little bit of light back here into this one so it advances a bit. I watch it compared to the others. He needs to advance a bit, and he will advance if we take a little more light color and give it just a touch more of an edge. He will advance a bit more right there. And maybe a bit more of an edge right here. There we go. Just like that. Maybe a touch more light. I can afford it on him because I've got so much light on that front one there. So he can afford to have a little more work. A little more interest into him there. Like that. And that soft back one back there, maybe I'll just take a softer little pink color here. A little bit of violet in it so it cools it off just a bit. A little bit more violet. And a touch of green because it's a little bright. So a tiny touch of the pine green will tone it down. See how it tones it down? It's a little bright there. Let's push that out and around. Let's just push it around. I like those transparent edges and stuff there. Okay. And then we'll come back up here towards some of the light. Push in a bit more pink. Not too much light. So all I think of when I start to get simple is just the light and shadow. So where's the light going to hit it? And I'll hit it with that light and shadow there, see? And then what is it that makes the rose? It's that little center. So I'm going to open this up a little bit more So I'll tap and just move around a bit. The more I move around, the rounder the rose becomes. So move around just a touch there. My chair's a little squeaky today. So I'll touch that. And this leaf goes up in front of it, but you know, to really give a nice, we could build up that edge and let that leaf sit right in front of this petal here. But that petal's lighter because the light source is coming from the top, so that hits that. So that sits kind of nice through there like that. That works kind of well. And I'll start to maybe small down a little bit. I'll move back and forth now through the painting, looking at stuff. Like maybe I want, that's going to be a little too light. Maybe I want to put a touch more of a lighter yellow moving through my light source right through here, through that mark there, because it just breaks up that, so it puts a little bit more yellow. Maybe some of that can appear right over here in a mark here, and then I'll just take the edges away from that mark a bit. Yeah, that works pretty well. I like that. And, you know, when you go to, you know, Alla Prima stuff, you know, they would do this. Into the Grand Mandarin, do this to carry some of those tones, that tone travels up and across and in there and gives you a better line of harmony through the painting and stuff. So that works. I could, for the overall balance of the painting, I could have another maybe smaller. I could make, you know, I said I was going to do some rosebuds, and here I haven't done them, but we could take off more into a rosebud shape. Let's turn this one more into a rosebud, which is more of an oval shape to these. That's all you got to do. Maybe put a line and then the oval shape here. Blur that just so they start to see the oval shape, and it'll become more of a rosebud here. And so paint this more of an oval. You can have a couple of petals opening it up, which, you know, it does. But I'll blur. See, this is all wet because one of the things I added to that color as I put that back there was that open medium. So everything stays really, really wet here. And I'll blur just because, like I say, what I need back there is color more than anything else, is color. And yeah, it all works. Let's put a bit more green. Just the color marks. And so with a lot of the impressionists and stuff, as you get further out through there, you just put on marks. You don't need any shapes. You just need marks. So we just need some marks of color and stuff through here that will feed the eye going that way a bit without distracting. Here, we'll, you know, make the eye go out that way a bit without getting too distracting. Let's bring some more light yellow right into the front of this one here. That leaf here, right where that light is. So I go back through and I start looking through, where is my light? Did I capture the light moving through the painting like I wanted to? You know, and here I'm going to go a little bit more lighter blue. We'll come over here, find a kind of a clean spot. Lighter blue, green, a little more green. Let's push that, because I do like that cooler, lighter blue there into that. So I got that cool and warm going on there. I like that. So start touching through maybe a little bit of green into this one. Bring that light back up into this leaf. There. Boom, right there. And maybe just a whisper of it there. There. track the light. Follow the, make sure you're expressing that light. That the way that that does justice to the painting. In other words, so we'll move that through and everything. Let's warm that just a bit right up here. A little bit of yellow. And there, a few little marks. I like to put some of that through. Maybe a nice little lighter yellow-green mark right up here. Carries some of that. Some darker blue-green marks out over here to this side. Maybe it's a bit bright, so some burnt sienna in it will warm it slightly, but also place it into position better. So a few little marks right over there like that. And so it's just basically, you know, you're putting on some of these different colors, these leaves, little marks of them. And I'll thin down as I go further back, maybe thin it way down so that you don't have a powerful color. Thin it with some extender so that you don't have a powerful color, and bushy up your composition a bit here. You know, add a few little things of, you know, marks and movements and stuff that give that interest to it, you know. There, like that. That looks pretty good. Let's take a look. Maybe we can go back the camera just a bit more here. Boom, boom, boom. And grab this frame and set that there and see what that looks like. That's going to be kind of pretty. I could drag that light a little bit more to the left, but oh, that's kind of iffy. I could put a nice reflected glow right back in one spot here. And this is a kind of a complicated painting. So we're an hour and 12. The other one was hour and a half or whatever. So we're only 2.5 hours or whatever it is into the painting. Maybe 2 hours and 40 minutes. Not quite 3 hours. That's not too bad. So, you know, I could take some time refining stuff here. Let's take a bit of an orange, a little bit of green into this, and let's intensify right in here, just a bit, right where that cooler leaf is coming in there. Just a little bit more intense right in there, that reflected kind of light right down in there. And that looks pretty good. That leaf is, though, heading down. When it comes down here, it's heading past the apex and it's heading down into the shadow. So that shadow would pick up right back in here again. And so we'll clear this up into the shadow a bit more. Coming from the light down into the shadow. And I'll leave some of those nice broken edges. See where I just blurred that right through? It's those broken edges that's all so much a part of the grand manner of painting and stuff that we really want to head towards. So we've got to learn how to leave some of those marks and those edges in there. Push some of that color. Let's get some of that orange and burnt sienna and stuff and push some of that through the painting here, these marks. And let that happen, because that's the color, the beauty of this painting is some of that color. See, so that orange, a little bit of burnt sienna in it though, would be pretty, like a mark, and see, it's the unexpected part of it into the painting. The interest comes from the unexpected, that orange that's happening there, that are just kind of carrying through here. That's kind of the unexpected, the spark of color. You've heard me in other lessons talk about the spark in landscapes and stuff like that. Well, I learned the spark in landscapes and stuff from a lot of this. Like, we might want to just spark a little more yellow. Boom, right in there. Just, you know, it. And what could this yellow be? Well, if this table was at all shiny where it is, it would actually be the brass coming down onto the table. because that would happen as well. The reflected light of the brass coming down onto the table, that would happen. And so what you're doing with some of this is this impressionism here is you're just taking it and you know, you're taking the realism and fracturing off the edges, basically, is what you're doing. And let's just take a smaller brush here and just pull some of that down and blur it off. Cut through it a bit, break the edges, pull some of that down and blur it off. And I like that. And so sometimes I will work, see, I just like that second little mark. It's the spark. Maybe, and this is the kind of thing that you could spend hours sitting down looking at and saying, ooh, maybe I want a little bit more of an orange spark right through like that. See? Maybe that orange spark would look good right over here. Maybe just a touch of it right there. You know, and so that's the prettiness, the glow of the colors. You know, maybe you push a, you know, maybe that appears right back up here again. See, it picks up that orange and it comes back right in here where it's all the same. Maybe just whisper a bit of it right in there, see? And all of a sudden, it jumps to life. And so that's what you look at. And what is actually the answer to that is you got to try it. You got to say, you know, at some point you got to take the orange out of your hand because you'll put it everywhere. But it does add quite a bit to the painting. And then what is one of the things you should always do? In all of the paintings we painted with together here for the last several years on the channel, is take that orange into, especially into your center of interest flower, because that is the harmony color. That becomes your color of harmony. So I'm going to put a little orange right in there, and if I overpaint that flower too much, then I add a little bit of white and I set that into that orange into as a color within the flower. See, now you pick up that little bit of orange. Do you see that? So there's a little bit of orange right over here. Maybe I'll just kind of touch a little bit into that rose right there. Maybe a softer little orange down into some of that shadow right there that then picks up the pink and that orange. So see how that orange is moving through the painting here. You know, it just moves through, and you'll pick up little bits of it here. You know, so, yeah, and that's what makes it work. That's what makes the paintings beautiful. Little bit of that orange here. Yeah, just real pretty colors, you know, and maybe a touch of that into your pink. Sometimes your pink flowers can get too pink. And let's just put a little open medium in that. So it translucents the painting. We'll put a little orange there. We'll come back, touch a little light. Here. There we go. Little orange, little light. And there you go with that. That looks pretty good. Here we go. A little bit of that right in there. Maybe I took out a little too much of that highlight right there, so we'll just restate that a bit. Maybe that hammered look just a bit more. Here. Right there. Do some of that, but that pretty orange, orangey yellow here. Some of the yellow oxide, but here we go. Work that. See, you can work these colors back and forth like this several times until you like it. You like that right in there. Let's get back up to that highlight. Go over here to a clean spot. More of a yellow into that highlight. Here, yeah. Like those colors. These are nice. And I'm not a real orange person, you know, but I do like how that is adding quite a bit to this painting. And there we go. That's creating all of that. That's pretty neat. Boy, my chair is really squeaky today. There. So, and like I say, you can work that and work that and work that until you finally get it. I'm kind of liking that. It kind of goes quick, light, dark, but it does into the sample that we're using. I'm going to work a bit more dark here up into some of it here. Just smaller brush marks. See, I'm using just a corner of my, and then I'll take that yellow orange here and just work that edge a bit here. Yeah, I like that better. And then maybe a little bit of light into that. And we'll work that across a bit. Take off some of this extra paint. Change the tone so that you're not constantly working with the same tone. Go to that half kind of tone right in between there. You can soften it all really nice by just blurring right through it, but I like some of the hammered look, so I won't blur too much of it there. And yeah, let's work that light up just a touch more here, right on down here. There we go. See, I like to do this and lift off the brush, and I get that fractured edge. That's the kind of light that I like going through that painting. So that's pretty nice. That'll work right there. So hour and 21 minutes there with that painting on that one today after a 2-day break. So it works. So that'll give you kind of an idea here. I mean, it's a little dark right here. I could have a little bit more going on, but I think overall I like how it leads your eye in. And I like all of the colors and stuff like that you know, we have going into this painting here. And you know, and then coming into here, you look at that the queen roses, that real express light that's right in here. Boy, that just hammers your light. I could, you know how you just can't leave it alone. I can't leave it alone. I'll take a bit of light. I could really focus that ring of light by bringing this one up just a bit more. Let's get a lighter little orange right into it there. Not lose that shadow, so I'll lift some of it off with my finger there. But let's express just a touch more light and see if we like it. Right? That's the point we're at. You know, trying a few things here. Let's express a little bit more light here. Here we go, and put a little bit of that orange into that. There we go. And see, that gives there's the train. We'll push in. There we go. Just like that. So it gives a better flow of that light through there. We could have just a touch of that coming into our back of our flower here. Yeah. Maybe a touch of that light. See, just little bits of it. But what it does is it creates this harmony of the light moving through. And that's what I'm looking for here. A little bit of that light moving through. Just like that, okay? So that works pretty well. And there we go with that right there. And that's my phone ringing. It's probably my wife. So I'll go give her a call. So that does work, I think. That works best with that light. You don't want to create a line of light, but we want to move that through. So maybe just a touch more light right here. That helps point towards that right there, and that will work. So there we go, just like that. Did you enjoy it? I had a really good time with you guys. So you know, and you can change some of the colors in this too. We can do more of a pewter vase and stuff, but I like some of the warms and the cools and the cooler blue greens and stuff with it. You could take a stroke or two of this cooler blue green into your container and stuff, but it's a nice painting, I think, and I like all this. It's a good prep for us to learn how to manipulate those edges and get more into the tone painting as we move into some of a little bit more of a grand manner style, where we're going to be even more fractured edges, more tones and all that kind of stuff. It's a good warm up for you and stuff. But I do like the beauty of the, painting those types of roses that I like doing. If you want to paint those roses, those are on the YouTube channel here. That full lesson's over there. And you can practice that before you start this bigger painting like this one, okay? All right, thanks for joining me, guys. We have a lot more coming. I'll have another one up this week, and you watch for that one too, okay? All right, I'll see you on the next lesson. Thanks a lot. Oh, and always leave a comment. Make sure you hit that like button too, because we appreciate that, because that just helps us get our videos out, okay? All right, I'll see you guys on the next one.